And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have a magnificent guest with us tonight, one who was going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than the legendary Dr. Minister Alim Muhammad, a scholar and just a good humanitarian and so much more. But to me, someone who is a friend of the family and a friend of the People's Podcast. So we thank Allah for you to come on. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you doing, Brother Joshua?
I'm doing great, sir. And so many people have been sending me questions and comments and things of that nature. And I was like, okay, good. I'm gonna ask Dr. Ali.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Sir. And
just give me all the way here to adjust what I'm trying to do on this end.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we're waiting on
okay. All right, we're good.
Perfect. Yes, sir. And I just want to say, Dr. Lee, I don't, I always ask you, do you know, keep up what's going on social media? You have, anytime I interview you, you receive so much love. And there's so many people around the world like who comment and question. And I always wanted to, somebody asked me, they said, why do you interview Dr. Alim so much? And I was telling that person, I said, I have a playlist on the YouTube where I interview murderers, killers, people who got out of prison and the nation changed their life. They heard the teachings and it changed their life, this and that, gangsters, rappers, and art. And nobody ever asked why I question them and why I interview them. But when I interview a man who has saved the lives of many, then all of a sudden my phone will ring and say, why do you quit? As if this man has not contributed so much to society. So I just want that on the record of why we love Dr. Minister Alim Muhammad for all the great work that he's done. And I spoke with a sister Aisha, and she was telling me how excited she is about the interview she did with you. But that she's just one of many of people who Dr. Alim has actually saved their lives. So we always want to give you your flowers and salute you, sir, for the work that you've done. My cousin, Camilla, telling me the story about you help saving my aunt Jamila's life and my sister, and there's just so many. So we just want to thank you and man, just give you your respect. I want to show a quick.
Well, thank you very, very much. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. I want to show a brief clip of Dr. Alim in his element, and then we'll ask him what's going on there, because of course we have so many heavy topics, but we want to start off with this one first. Yes, sir. 1 second. Here we go. Yes, sir.
Oh, that's at Mas Mariam in May of
experiences that is weakness. So now this is like a computer. A computer just is binary. It's a series of ones and zeros, right? So when he's matching my force, that's like 1. That's a 0. Okay? Now, let me see if all of his circuits are functioning, because the body is electrical. Put your thumb and little finger there, like that. Okay? The body is electrical. So now I have to make sure all his circuits are actually working. So match my force, brother. Okay, that's good on that side. You can put that down. Now put the thumb and pinky together on this side. Let's match my force. Okay, it's good on that side. So now we can actually test him. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this arm as the indicator, and then I'm going to go throughout his body and test all the organs in his body to see which ones are strong and which ones are not strong. So now your job, remember, is just to match my force, and don't try too hard. Just if the muscle gets weak, it gets weak. If it gets strong, it gets strong. Okay? All right, so match my force. So I'm testing his brain now. Would you lift up your head?
Yes, sir.
Match my force.
Okay.
Cervical spine, head down. Okay, maxillary sinuses. Do you have a sinus problem?
Slightly, yes, sir.
Slight sinus problem.
Yes,
Match my force. Okay, the upper jaw. Do you have some bad teeth there?
No, sir.
You know,
Excellent.
all of them? Okay, you better check it now.
Yes, sir.
Match my fourth.
Okay, we're not gonna play the whole clip, but I wanted to a little bit. Okay, now Dr. Alim, can you let us know what was taking place and what is matching your force and how you know what I mean? This brother's a god at what he does. What he let us know what was going on.
Okay, well, first of all, let me give a disclaimer that if someone, let me first make a request, then I'll make a disclaimer. And the request is if anybody has that entire lecture from May, I think May the 5th, 2005, please send it to me because I don't have it. It's called the Atonement and Purification of a Nation. So I don't even have that lecture. It's about a 2-hour lecture. So if anybody has that, please try to get it to me because I would like to see it myself again. Now, the disclaimer is that since that time, I've improved my ability, and I'm actually a little bit ashamed of the amateur mistakes that I was actually making at that time. So also, since that time, there are many people, some in the Nation of Islam, who have also learned that technique of autonomic response testing. And some of them are actually advanced in that technique. And so the reason I'm making the disclaimer is they'll probably notice some of the mistakes that I made. Now, someone who's not familiar with it, they don't see the mistakes, but I made a few mistakes. And so I'm just making a disclaimer that should not be used as a training tape by anyone, because the mistakes were really because I'm talking to an audience of people at the same time that I'm trying to put some of my attention on the person that I'm examining. And of course, that's not a realistic thing to do. In an actual clinical setting, 100% of my attention would be on the examination, not on an audience that I'm also trying to communicate with. So I just want to make that disclaimer.
Yes, sir.
Now, what the technique is a technique that is very ancient. It's making use of the human body as an instrument to measure anything that needs to be measured. So this was a technique that was used in ancient Egypt. I did a demonstration once on the West Coast in San Francisco. A Chinese lady, Dr. Effie Chow, I think, she said, "Oh no, we were doing that in China 5,000 years ago." So again, you don't want to get confused and think, and some people accuse me of going to the mother plane and learning some new technique. No, this is just really a rediscovery of ancient knowledge. So it's just the proper understanding of the human body, the human nervous system, and how to use it in order to get answers to problems that affect both the mind and the body. So now, very simply, I think I said on the clip that you played, just as a computer is binary, just ones and zeros, well, the body is binary too. You have a parasympathetic nervous system and a sympathetic nervous system. And so that's like zeros and ones. And so depending on the pattern, that determines the program or what's going on. So the examination is just a matter of interacting with the energy fields. Some people would call it the aura that surrounds the body. And depending on what part of the body that you're interacting with, when I say interacting, remember, one of the chakras, one of the major chakras comes out of the palm of the hand. So when I'm examining someone and I put it here or there or wherever I'm putting my hand, there's energy coming out from my chakra in the palm of my hand, interacting with the energy coming from the heart or the lungs or the liver or whatever part of the body is being examined. Now, see, two things have to be true. as the examiner, I have to be in good shape. I can't have disease coming out of my hand. So I have to be healthy myself. So if I'm fit and able and in good shape, well nourished, well fed, well rested, if I'm in tip-top shape and I have no weaknesses myself, then when I examine someone else, if there's a disturbance in their chakra over the heart or over the lungs or the kidneys or the adrenal glands or the knee that's swollen, hey, well, that disturbed energy field is an indication that something is wrong. So then that becomes a weak reflex. That means, see, when the testing arm is strong, that's the sympathetic nervous system.
Yes, sir.
That's your strength. That's your strength. You see, so fight or flight, that's your sympathetic nervous system. See, that's how my sister used to always beat me up when we got into a fight, because she knew how to tickle me. She knew my tickle spots. And once she started me laughing, see, then that switches you over to your parasympathetic, and it makes your muscles weak. And then she could do what she wants. You see? So again, these are things that we commonly understand and experience, but we have to learn how to use it to get some benefit for ourselves, you know, while we live. And so going through all of the areas of the body, I can discover what organ systems or what parts of the body are testing weak, meaning that the arm goes weak. Then using a different testing vials of substances, I can answer the question, what made that person's heart go weak? Was it a bacteria? Was it a virus? Was it a fungus? Was it a parasite? Was it a toxin? Was it a chemical? Was it a radioactive element? What was it? Was it sugar? Was it wheat? Was it what was it? So I have a test kit with hundreds of different vials of different substances. So if, for example, if the heart went weak on a particular patient and I put wheat on that heart and now it goes strong, oh, now I made the connection. The reason this heart is weak is because this is a person who should not be eating wheat, or the kind of wheat that they may be eating might be the problem. You know, they might be eating GMO wheat instead of real wheat. so on and so forth. So you can in fact test the entire body directly through an interaction with the energy system that then causes a response that's either a parasympathetic response, in other words, weakness, the arm goes weak, or any muscle that you want to use. You don't have to use the arm muscle to test with. You can test any muscle, but the arm is the most convenient. And if the muscle stays strong, then that means, you know, that is that muscle or that heart is strong, or whatever organ you're testing. Now that gives you the diagnosis. See, the reflex of the heart went weak. That's the diagnosis. You find out, oh, it was weak because of wheat, and also a bacteria is there. So now what do we have to do to handle that problem? Well, of course, avoid wheat in the diet. So there's a dietary recommendation, avoid wheat. And then there's a bacteria there causing inflammation. So we find out what particular supplement, what particular substance will actually handle that bacteria that's causing a problem in the heart. And that becomes the treatment program. So in any given case, there might be 3 or 4 weak reflexes. And to handle all of them, to bring all of the reflexes in the body up to 100% fitness and full function, okay, that would define a program or treatment program for a specified limit of time. It's usually for a relatively short time, because the body really is eager to heal itself. The body wants to be healthy, and all it needs is the right nutrition. So the right treatment in almost every case that I wind up this brief explanation of that autonomic response testing, in almost every case, maybe 90% of the time, the correct answer to correct any problem in the body is the correct food. So that brings us right back to how to eat to live, where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says there's no cure for us in drugs or medicine. The only cure for us is in what we eat. So how to eat to live is based on what? Fasting. Yes, 1 meal a day is fasting. 2 or 3 days a month, that's fasting. Ramadan, that's fasting. But then the second part of it is fasting with the right foods. So in part, you see, How to Eat to Live is a book that is a list of all of the good foods to eat and the bad ones to stay away from. But wait a minute, let's get very, very individualistic about it. Yes, in general, these are the right foods for people to eat, and these are the bad ones for people to avoid. But what about you as a particular individual?
Yes, sir.
It might be okay for people to eat strawberries, but what about you? You might have a deadly allergy to strawberries. It might be okay for 99% of the people to eat fish, but if you eat fish, it's going to make you sick. So again, we're talking about what? The knowledge of self. Do you know enough about yourself to compose the perfect diet for yourself to keep yourself healthy? You see, then that's how to eat to live. Fasting with the right food. Right for who? Right for you.
Teacher,
so thanks for that question.
All praise due to Allah. Thank you so much. And so many people showing you love all around the world. Thank you, Sister Miriam, Sister Naima, Brother Nelson Ramos. Everybody saying assalamu alaikum, Dr. Alim, beautiful family. Thank you all who are watching. Everybody stay tuned. We have some great subjects and questions. We're just getting started. Okay, Dr. Alim, I also spoke with you previously about the history of the rebuilding of the nation and some of the laborers and your interactions with them. And I wanted to start with Brother Wazir, who used to be the national secretary, and your connection with him. Could you expound on that?
Oh, well, Brother Wazir, again, I didn't have a close personal relationship with him, but I knew him from my days when I rejoined the nation with the Minister Linward, now Minister Kareem in New York. And there was a brother there, Brother Juan. Brother Juan and Sister Tony, they were in Mosque number 7 in the rebuilding effort. And then, of course, Brother Juan was the secretary of number 7, and he did such a spectacular job that I think that's the reason why he was brought to Chicago and became the national secretary. And then he and Sister Tony, she later became Sister Aisha, the national MGT captain.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's pretty much what I know about the two of them. I just remember them when all of us were together in the early days of the rebuilding effort in New York on was that Parkway in Brooklyn?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I always see people talk
Eastern
about
Park. What is it called?
Eastern Parkway. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. And I wanted to ask you about Brother Abdul Wali Muhammad, who was the former national editor of the Final Call. Could you let us know your connection to him and what took place after he was no longer, after he transitioned? Can you let us know about him?
Oh, yes. Well, Abdul Wali Muhammad was a great friend of mine, and I did have a close personal connection with him and his whole family. He had a wonderful wife, Sister Zenobia, and beautiful children. Yes. Some of the smartest children that you ever met in your life. And of course, that was because of their father, Brother James. At the time when I first met him, I came to Washington, D.C. The minister had asked me to help him here in Washington. So as the minister, he was my captain. He was my first captain. And he was a great captain. He was a rugged warrior. I'll put it that way. You talk about militant, you talk about hardcore. That was Brother Wali. But now he had a great family background. His mother was a pharmacist. His father was the famous Simeon Booker of Jet Magazine. And in fact, Brother Wali has a blood brother, Simeon Booker Jr., who at the time was my secretary when I first came to Washington, D.C. So one brother was the secretary of the mosque, and the other brother was the captain. So they both had this brilliant journalistic background through their father. And, you know, the mom was an intellectual giant.
Yes, sir.
And so naturally, these were super. I mean, Simeon, his brother Simeon, he was a super athlete. Wally was a super athlete. And so long story short, the minister had him come to Chicago to help with the Savior's Day drive that year. And when he saw the brilliance that this brother exhibited, I mean, he named him as the editor of the Final Call newspaper. And although I was very glad for Brother Wali's elevation as the editor of the Final Call, I was also very sad because I lost my captain. I lost my captain. That was my captain. And of course, he did a brilliant job over the years that he was overseeing the paper. And in fact, we were so close that when my wife and I moved from New York to Washington, we didn't have any place to stay. We stayed with Brother Wali and his wife. And then when they went to Chicago, we took over the apartment that they had until we found a house of our own. And then, of course, Brother Wali and I went together to the 20th anniversary of the Libyan Revolution in 1989. That was the first trip for both of us to the African continent. And then later, in 1991, when I had gotten some idea about Chemron as a treatment for HIV, Minister Farrakhan sent the both of us again to Africa, this time to Kenya. And of course, Brother Wali was the one that recorded the entire narrative of our encounter with David Koresh and with Dr. Barbara Justice, you know, and then the patient that were here from America who were being treated for HIV in Kenya, and the research that was being done. I mean, you know, Wali was right there, and he took all the pictures, recorded it. And if you get those editions of the Final Call newspaper, you have the complete history of Chemron and alpha interferon and how we brought that back to the United States, you know, to the benefit of so many millions of people whose lives have been saved. But Brother Wali was the journalist, you know, who broadcast it to the entire world so that the world understood, you know, what was taking place in Kenya. And then we ended up in Ghana together at what do you call that? The Organization of African Unity Conference there. And we acted. Now, Brother Wali, as I said, was an athlete. An interesting side story, which relates to his death. He was just a hard driving brother. See, a psychologist would describe Brother Wali as having a type A personality. Very punctual, very serious, very intense, you know, I mean, not cracking a smile, you know, I mean, just hardcore, hard driving. And so I remember when we were at the Intercontinental Hotel in Nairobi, we were waiting to get an appointment with David Koresh at the Kenyan Medical Research Institute. And so we had some free time on our hands. So Brother Wali said, hey, let's go down to the gym. They have a great gym. Let's go work out together. Well, now I wasn't into working out at that time, you know, but I said, okay, nothing better to do. So now there I am down in the gym, pumping iron, trying to keep up with Brother Wali. And when, you know, within about 20 minutes, I'm laying out on a bench. I can't even move, you know. I feel like I'm getting ready to die. He had to run upstairs to get me some orange juice and some coffee to revive me so I could just stand up.
Yes, sir.
He was just getting started. He was just getting started. I mean, he was just a tremendously fit individual, but he had that Class A personality. And all throughout those trips, he actually fooled me. He was making complaints as though he had a peptic ulcer. And I and other doctors along the way, we were treating him for a peptic ulcer.
Mm.
And all the time, it was probably not his stomach at all, because the peptic ulcer treatment never worked. And then all of a sudden we get the terrible news, you know, that he suffered a heart attack. And then I realized, you know, yeah, that big mistake was made, a misdiagnosis. Peptic ulcer disease, myocardial ischemia, you know, heart disease, masquerading as peptic ulcer disease, a classic medical mistake. And so he received the wrong treatment. He was being treated for a disease that he did not have. It was a misdiagnosis that led to mistreatment. And then, of course, because he was so fit and healthy, looking and acting, no one bothered to consider the consequences of that type of intense, so-called type A personality. Those are people who are notorious for early heart attacks. These are the hard driving executives that go right to the top and then drop dead. So I think that's my analysis of that case. It was very mystifying at the time. A lot of theories, unfounded theories, were spun at the time. Was he poisoned? Was this, was that? No, it was just a simple misdiagnosis, that's all. And he really needed, see, what would have helped Brother Wali to survive would have been something like meditation. To handle that intensity that he was always driving himself with. You know, that was his characteristic, you know, hard driving all the time, no let up, no let up.
Yes, sir. Okay, great. I mean, thank you for this great history, and people are showing you love all around the world. Brother Khalil says Brother Wali was a true believer and a beautiful brother. Brother Michael Vinton, peace and blessings, families. The Minister Aisha says, greetings, family. And she remembers you all being in Africa. I'm assuming that's what she means, but she remembers that. Thank you all very much. Okay, one more question about this, because I know everyone is looking forward to the breakdown of world events as well as local events. But we have another question. One more. You spoke about, I sent you a clip on YouTube of you and Brother Attorney Alim Muhammad being interviewed in Washington, D.C. together, where you all were on the same panel in D.C. And you said, you were telling me about Brother Arf and your connection and how you encouraged him to go back to school. Can you tell us that story?
Oh, okay, yes. Well, you know, Brother Arif, for those who don't know, you know, I think his official title now, he's the General Counsel for the Nation of Islam. I mean, I think I might be saying it not exactly right, but I mean, that's his top. He's the top guy in terms of legal advice for Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. So we're not talking about somebody of no consequence. But in 1981, the minister has asked me to help him in Washington. So really my first trip down to DC, there was a meeting of the small group of Muslims that existed at that time, which included your mother and your uncle, Brother Arif, Sister Savella, now Sister Alnisa, Brother Donald Muhammad, Brother James, who was Brother Wali, Brother George, my future wife, mashallah, and Brother Forrest, Brother Simeon. Trying to remember, you know, everybody that was there.
Yes, sir.
Sister Joyce was the acting captain. And I'm trying, and her husband, I can't remember his name right now. But anyhow, it was a small group, or a study group, really. And I was being introduced to them for the first time, and I gave a lecture. This was at Howard University in that small auditorium that they had. And that's where I met Brother Arif. And so over the next couple of weeks, you know, we got to know one another. And I discovered that he was a law student. He was a law student at Howard University Law School. And then one week I came down, because by that time I was I was going back and forth from New York to Washington every week, every weekend. I had a BMW, so Minister Linwood called it my jet car, because I could get from New York to Washington, D.C. in 3 hours. And no ticket. But anyhow, one week I came down, Brother Arif told me he had dropped out of law school. He had dropped out of law school so he could help the minister, so he could soldier for Muhammad. That's what he was talking like, because he was real militant like that. I said, wait a minute, brother. I said, you sound like me. You sound like me. When I first joined the nation, the first thing I wanted to do was drop out of college so I could soldier for Muhammad. And luckily I had a good lieutenant who said, who straightened me out. He said, brother, you are a soldier. If you're a student, you are a soldier. Then he recited that famous saying of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, that one learned man is harder on the devil than 1,000 ignorant worshipers. So my lieutenant told me, any one of us can sell papers, brother. But how many of us got a chance to go to school? How many of us got a chance to get a professional degree? So you might not want. He said something like this. He said, you're not just going for yourself. You're going for all of us. So no, brother, don't you drop out of school. So I remember that. I remember the good advice that somebody gave me. And that's the advice I gave to Brother Arif. But guess what happened? When he went back, trying to get back in law school, they told him, said, well, you dropped out. Your class has moved on. He said, we will accept you back, but you have to finish the class where you dropped out, and then you have to go on to the next class. In other words, you have to take 2 years of law school all at the same time. And not only did he do it, they elected him the president of the Law Students Association. Yeah. So in other words, you're looking at Brother Arif, you're looking at somebody that is absolutely incredible, and always has been that way. He didn't just get that way. He's always been that way. And then, many things that he did along the way, still doing. Most people don't even know he was actually the firecracker minister that I sent to Norfolk, Virginia, that ignited Norfolk, Virginia, so they could get a mosque. I mean, they had a lot of believers down there, but you need the right type of person to go in there and organize people and get things started.
Yes, sir.
So he went down there within like 6 months. I mean, he had Norfolk jumping. Crazy. So you see, that was kind of a rescue operation. Suppose he had dropped out of law school. Then where would we be in terms of our legal counsel and the ability to defend ourselves against those who attack us? You see, so that's the story, and there's more to it, but those are the essential facts about it.
Oh, praise to Allah. Yes, sir. Great. And thank you very much for this wonderful history. And thank you for, man, this is powerful. We need this. Shout out to everyone who's pursuing, education. My next question for you, sir, is, I was watching a clip of Donahue, the Honorable Minister Min Farrakhan on Donahue, and I look in the audience and I see, of course, yourself along with Brother Alim Muhammad, Minister Kadir, just other people in the audience, sitting in the audience, and I'm looking, and I screenshot the picture and I sent it to my family, and I said, look at all these people who was, in the press, Donahue and all that back in the day, and I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give? How did you learn how to handle the press, like in DC, and how to handle that type of, you as a minister, how did you learn how to handle that? And what advice would you give to others who now, and have to handle the press? It's a social media press or this press. How did you learn how to handle the press? And what advice would you give on how to deal with the media?
Well, I wouldn't hold myself out as an expert to tell anybody how to handle the press. All I can do is tell you what I did. The number one thing that I did was I observed Minister Farrakhan and how he handled the press. And of course, other people as well. I mean, I've been a political observer all my life. I've been watching politicians and people on television all my life. And so I see how they handle the press. So I'm a good imitator.
Yes,
So I
sir.
just tried to pick up the best practices from the good examples that were all around. Now, when the dope buster phenomenon happened in April of 1988, the minister, I was actually in Norfolk at that time where Brother Arif was, and he told me, get back to DC. Something jumped off in DC. You need to hold a press conference, which I did, and the rest is history.
Yes, sir.
After that press conference, he called me up and said, I think I've found my national spokesman. And he gave me advice. He said, the whole world is going to be knocking on your door asking for interviews. And he said, don't turn any of them down. And so one way I learned how to handle the press was by doing interview after interview after interview after interview and finding out all of the tricks that they play on you. For example, I was invited to do the morning program on NBC with Brian Gumbel. And when I got to New York to do the interview, they took me into the studio, put me in the green room. And then somebody ducked in the room and said, Brian is not going to be available to do the interview with you. And they named some lady, with long blonde hair. So I had never been in that type of studio before, but the studio is a big open room. And in the room, they have these big cubicles, like big cubes, like about 4 feet high. And they're about 6 feet by 6 feet, maybe 8 feet by 8 feet. And that's where the chairs are, where you do the interview. And on either side of you, if you make a move, you're going to fall off. And then she's sitting right in face to face with me, asking me questions about the dope busters. And I noticed she has some pointy-toed high heels on with a steel tip on the tip of the shoe. So now we're sitting face to face. She asking me questions on national television. And after she asked the question, I'm trying to answer the question. She's kicking me. She's kicking me with her pointy-toe shoe in my shins. Now, that hurts. So now the camera's focused on your face. Somebody's kicking you. You trying to answer a question. Hey, they're trying to make you look crazy. See, so I learned all the tricks. So then I pulled the trick on them. See, because at that time, if people don't recall, all the media had the same mantra. They were talking about Minister Farrakhan, who considers Hitler a great man. He called Judaism a gutter religion. Blah, 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 all that stuff.
Yes, sir.
So the minister had told me, now I disobeyed the minister in a little way, you could say, because he told me don't turn down any interviews. And I didn't, except one. Every time the Washington Post asked for an interview, I said no. And they sent the junior reporter at first, then the next higher one, the next higher one. Finally, they got to the top, Dorothy Gilliam. She was the top correspondent for the Washington Post. She showed up at the mosque, and I had when I saw her name, I agreed to do the interview. So when she got in my office, she started with her questions. I said, wait, Miss Gilliam. I said, I thought you came here to give the apology. She said, apology for what? I said, for your newspaper calling Minister Farrakhan a lover of Hitler and calling Judaism a gutter religion. Didn't you come here to give the retraction? Is that what you came for? She said, no, I just wanted to get an interview about the dope. I said, I'm sorry. It must have been a misunderstanding, Miss Gilliam. I'm sorry to waste your time. I thought you came here to publish the retraction. She said, well, no, Dr. Muhammad. I said, well, when you go back to your office, I said, you tell Donald Graham, your boss, he's the owner of the Washington Post. I said, you go tell Mr. Graham that Dr. Muhammad would like to meet with him. And tomorrow at 10 o'clock would be a good time. She said, well, but Mr. Graham is a bit busy, man. I said, no, Miss Gilliam, you go back to the office and you tell Donald Graham that Dr. Muhammad will meet with him tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. But I said, you go tell him what I said. And she did. So then about an hour later, my phone rang. It was Miss Gilliam again. She said, Mr. Graham said that he'll be out of town tomorrow, but he could meet the following day. Is that okay? I said, that would be fine. That would be fine. So long story short, I took Brother Jackie Muhammad with me, and we met with Donald Graham. He owns the Washington Post, the most powerful newspaper in America. And I told him why I had denied all his reporters an interview and why I wanted to sit down and talk to him for about 20 minutes. And I told him, I said, I want you to show me the proof that you have that Minister Farrakhan called Hitler a great man. And I want you to show me the proof that he considers Judaism a gutter religion. So that was the start of the conversation. And it went on for more than 20 minutes. It went on for about 2 hours. So then in the end, he called Lynn Downey, the chief editor. He said, Lynn Downey, come in here. Dr. Muhammad has raised some serious questions about our reporting on Minister Farrakhan. So where's the evidence that Minister Farrakhan called Hitler a great man? Where's the evidence that he called Judaism a gutter religion? And Lynn Downey, he started shaking in the chair. He said, well, Mr. Graham, see, our reporters don't really write that. He said, what do you mean they don't write that? It's in every story. He said, well, no, it's a computer program. The reporters don't have anything to do with it. They write their story, and then every time they mention the name Farrakhan, the automatic computer puts in who called Hitler a great man. The reporters didn't do that. The computer is a computer program. He said, well, I'm ordering you to take it out. And so Lynn Downey said, well, it's going to take a couple of days because it's real complicated, so I can't, it might take a day or two. Well, to his credit, see, Donald Graham, the owner of the Washington Post, kept his word. And from that day to this day, the Washington Post has never published a derogatory story about Minister Farrakhan. Because I understand that Donald Graham, even though he owns the Washington Post and he might be a billionaire, he ain't nothing but a man.
Go ahead, Dr. Alim.
He ain't no better than me. He sit down in front of me. Now you tell me something that's going to change my mind. Or am I going to tell you something that's going to change your mind? Be man to man. So that's how you handle the press. You just tell them the truth. And if they start telling lies, you just confront them with the truth. You don't even have to condemn the lie, just present the truth. So again, that's kind of the short story of how I learned to handle the press, handle the media.
All praise to Allah. Yes, sir. Excellent. Okay, Dr. Alim, we have a quick 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors. Is there a way that you can turn your camera a little bit back to the side because it shifted a little bit this way when you were telling the story? Perfect. There we go. Perfect. All right, everyone who's watching is showing you love all around the world. And man, this is powerful. Yes, sir. But we are grateful for every like, share, and subscription to the People's Podcast. Thank you for all of the People's Podcast affiliates who show love. Every anonymous Cash App, you all very much. And we are live with the People's Podcast. Street Premier Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out if you need any of that. Sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. Sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ. My two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Excellent. Also, please let us know which city you all are watching the People's Podcast in. And if you have any guest suggestions, feel free to put those in the comments, as well as if you are a person who would like to come on the People's Podcast, put them in a comment, put your name in the comment, and people are saying, go ahead and teach. Brother Wayne Muhammad, praise to Allah. And Brother Ronnie out of Arizona says, this is standing on business with a person, all praise to Allah. Thank you, Brother Ronnie. Thank you, Sister Shahida. Assalamu alaikum, family. Name Mr. A, all praise to Allah, love and history. And boom, thank you, everyone. And Sister Ms. Aisha says, glad you got sound advice. Boom, boom. This is great. Excellent. All right. Wonderful. All right, waiting on my brother, Dr. Alim Muhammad. All right. Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Now, my next question for you is, right now, there is I wouldn't use, people are on the edge of their seats just with the climate of politics in America, international, just period, and want answers. What advice would you give to people who are nervous about the political climate in America?
What advice would I give to people who are nervous about the political climate in America is you better get more nervous. You better get more than nervous. You started with that clip with the muscle testing. You see, the problem with most people nowadays